Chapter 3 Bryce Buddy, beware! Seventh grade brought changes, all right. But the biggest one didn't happen at school, it happened at home. Granddad Duncan came to live with us. At first, it was kind of weird because none of us really knew him, except for Mom, of course. And even though she spent the past year and a half trying to convince us he's a great guy, from what I can tell, the thing he likes to do best is stare out the front room window. There's not much to see out there except the baker's front yard, but you can find him there day or night, sitting in the big easy chair they moved in with him, staring out the window. Okay, so he also reads Tom Clancy novels and the newspapers and those crossword puzzles and tracks his stocks. But those things are all distractions, given no one to justify it to. The man would stare out the window until he fell asleep. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just seems so boring. Mom says he stares like that because he misses grandma. But that's not something Granddad had ever discussed with me. As a matter of fact, he never discussed much of anything with me until a few months ago when he read about Julie in the newspaper. Now, Julie Baber did not wind up on the front page of the Mayfield Times for being an eighth grade Einstein, like you might suspect. No, my friend. She got front page coverage because she refused to climb out of a sycamore tree. Not that I could tell a sycamore from a maple or a birch for that matter, but Julie, of course, knew what kind of tree it was and passed that knowledge along to every creature in her wake. So this sycamore tree, was up the hill on a vacant lot on Courier Street, and it was massive, massive and ugly. It was twisted and gnarled and bent, and I kept expecting the thing to blow over in the wind. One day last year, I'd finally had enough of her yakking about that stupid tree. I came right out and told her that it was not a magnificent sycamore. It was, in reality, the ugliest, the ugliest tree known to man. And you know what? And you know what she said? She said I was visually challenged. Visually challenged. This from the girl who lives in a house that's the scourge of the neighborhood. They've got bushes growing over windows, weeds sticking out all over the place, and a barnyard's worth of animals running wild. I'm talking dogs, cats, chickens, even snakes. I swear to God, her brothers have a boa constrictor in their room. They dragged me in there when I was about 10 and made me watch it eat a live, beady-eyed rat. They held that rodent up by its tail and gulped. The boa swallowed it whole. That snake gave me nightmares for a month. Anyway, normally I wouldn't care about someone's yard, but the baker's mess bugged my dad big time, and he channeled his frustration into our yard. He said it was our neighborly duty to show them what a yard's supposed to look like. So while Mike and Matt are busy plumping up their boa, I'm having to mow and edge our yard, then sweep the walkways and gutter, which is going a little overboard, if you ask me. And you'd think Julie's dad, who's a big, strong brick-laying dude, would fix the place up, but no, according to my mom, he spends all his free time painting. His landscapes don't seem like anything special to me. But judging by his price tags, he thinks quite a lot of them. We see them every year at the Mayfield County Fair. And my parents always say the same thing. The world would have more beauty in it if it fixed up the yard instead. Mom and Julie's mom do talk some. I think my mom feels sorry for Mrs. Baker. She says she married a dreamer, and because of that, one of the two of them will always be unhappy. Whatever, maybe Julie's aesthetic sensibilities have been permanently screwed up by her father, and and none of this is her fault. But Julie has always thought, but Julie has always thought that the sycamore tree was God's gift to our little corner of the universe. Back in the third and fourth grades, she used to clown around with her brothers in the branches or peel big chunks of bark off so they could slide down the crook in its trunk. It seemed like they were playing in it whenever my mom took us somewhere in the car. Julie'd be swinging from the branches, ready to fall and break every bone in her body, while we were waiting at the stoplight, and my mom would shake her head and say, "Don't you ever climb that tree like that. Do you hear me, Bryce? I never want to see you doing that. You either, Lunetta. That is much too dangerous." My sister would roll her eyes and say, as if, while I slumped beneath the window and pray for the light to change before Julie spilled my name for the world to hear. I did try to climb it once in the fifth grade. It was the day after Julie had rescued my kite from its mutant toy-eating foliage. She climbed it miles up to get my kite, and when she came down, she was actually very cool about it. She didn't hold my kite hostage and stick her lips out like I was afraid she might. She just handed it over and then backed away. I was relieved, but I also felt like a Winnie when I'd seen where my kite was trapped. I was sure it was a goner, not Julie. She scrambled up and got it down in no time. Man, it was embarrassing. So I made a mental picture of how high she'd climbed. And the next day I set off to outdo her by at least 2 branches. I made it past the crook, up a few limbs, and then, just to see how I was doing, I looked down. Mistake! It felt like I was on top of the Empire State Building without a bunch. I tried looking up to where my kite had been, but it was hopeless. I was indeed a tree-climbing Winnie. Then junior high started when my dream of a Julie-free existence shattered. I had to take a bus. And you know who did too. There were about 8 kids all together at our bus stop, which created a buffer zone. But it was no comfort zone. Julie always tried to stand beside me, or talk to me, or in some other way mortify me. And then she started climbing. The girl is in the 7th grade, and she's climbing a tree way up in a tree. And why does she do it? So she can yell down at us that the bus is 5, 4, 3 blocks away. Blow by blow traffic watch from a tree. What every kid in junior high feels like hearing first thing in the morning. She tried to get me to come up there with her too. Bryce, come on. You won't believe the colors. It's absolutely magnificent. Bryce, you've got to come up here. Yeah, I could just hear it. Bryce and Julie sitting in a tree. Was I ever gonna leave the 2nd grade behind? One morning, I was specifically not looking up when out of nowhere she swings down from a branch and practically knocks me over. Heart attack. I dropped my backpack and wrenched my neck. And that did it. I refused to wait under the tree with that maniac monkey on the loose anymore. I started leaving the house at the very last minute. I made up my waiting spot. And when I see the bus pull up, I'd truck up the hill and get on board. No Julie, no problem. And then, my friend, took care of the rest of 7th grade and almost all of 8th too, until one day a few months ago. That's when I heard a commotion up the hill and could see some big trucks parked up a Courier Street where the bus pulls in. There were some men shouting stuff up at Julie, who was, of course, 5 stories up in the tree. All the other kids started to gather under the tree too, and I could hear them telling her she had to come down. She was fine. That was obvious to anyone with a pair of ears. but I couldn't figure out what they were all arguing about. I trucked up the hill, and as I got closer and saw what the men were holding, I figured out in a hurry what was making Julie refuse to come out of the tree. Chainsaws. Don't get me wrong here, okay? The tree was an ugly mutant tangle of gnarly branches. The girl arguing with those men was Julie, the world's pathicist, bossest, most know-it-all female. But all of a sudden, my stomach completely bailed on me. Julie loved that tree. Stupid as it was, she loved that tree, and cutting it down would be like cutting out her heart. Everyone tried to talk her down, even me, but she said she wasn't coming down, not ever. And then she tried to talk us up. Bryce, please, come up here with me. They won't cut it down if we're all up here. For a second I considered it, but then the bus arrived and I talked myself out of it. It wasn't my tree. And even though she acted like it wasn't Julie's either. We boarded the bus and left her behind. But school was pretty much a waste. I couldn't seem to stop thinking about Julie. Was she still with the tree? Were they gonna arrest her? When the bus dropped us off that afternoon, Julie was gone and so was half the tree. The top branches, the place my kite had been stuck, her favorite perch, they were all gone.